The audition room was cold and empty. Only 3 chairs stood against the white wall. Sarah Martinez walked in slowly, holding her worn bag close to her chest. Her hands were shaking. She had never been so nervous in her entire life. This was the biggest moment she had been waiting for since she was a little girl. Director James Wilson sat behind a long table. His eyes were fixed on his phone. He did not even look up when Sarah entered. Next to him was the casting director, a woman with glasses who seemed tired. She gave Sarah a small smile that did not reach her eyes. The third person was the music supervisor. He was reading some papers and did not notice Sarah at all. Sarah had traveled 3 days to get here. She took 2 buses and 1 train. She slept at a cheap motel that smelled like old smoke. She only had $40 left in her pocket. This audition was everything to her. If she failed today, she would have to go back home to her small town. She would have to work at the grocery store again. Her dream of becoming a musician would be over. The director finally looked up. He glanced at Sarah for just 1 second. His face showed no emotion. He looked back at his notes and said in a flat voice that made Sarah feel small. "Name?" he asked. "Sarah Martinez," she replied. Her voice came out softer than she wanted. "What are you here for?" The director did not even try to hide his boredom. He had seen hundreds of people that week. To him, Sarah was just another face. Another person who thought they could make it big. "I am here for the pianist role," Sarah said. She tried to sound confident, but inside her heart was beating so fast she thought everyone could hear it. The director raised one eyebrow. He looked at Sarah from head to toe. She was wearing a simple black dress. It was the only nice dress she owned. Her shoes were old, but clean. She had spent an hour polishing them last night. Her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail. She wanted to look professional even though she felt terrified. "You brought your own piano?" the director asked. A small smile appeared on his face. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who was about to make fun of you. Sarah felt her cheeks turn red. "No, sir. I thought there would be a piano here for the audition." The director leaned back in his chair. He crossed his arms. "Well, there is a piano. But I am curious. What kind of piano do you play at home?" This was a strange question. Sarah did not understand why he was asking. But she answered honestly. "I don't have a piano at home, sir." The room became very quiet. The casting director looked up from her notes. The music supervisor stopped reading. Director Wilson stared at Sarah with wide eyes. "You don't have a piano?" he repeated slowly. His voice was different now. There was something else in it. Was it surprise? Or was it disbelief? "No, sir," Sarah said again. The director started to laugh. It was a loud laugh that filled the whole room. The casting director looked uncomfortable. She did not join in the laughter. The music supervisor put his papers down and watched with curious eyes. "Let me get this straight," the director said between laughs. "You are here to audition as a pianist for a major film production, but you do not own a piano? Is that right?" Sarah felt tears starting to form in her eyes. She wanted to run out of the room. She wanted to disappear. But something inside her made her stay. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the memory of all the hard work she had done to get here. "That is correct, sir," she said quietly. The director shook his head. He was still smiling that mean smile. "This is unbelievable. How can you be a pianist without a piano? That is like being a driver without a car. Or a chef without a kitchen." He looked at the other 2 people. "Can you believe this?" The casting director did not say anything. She just looked down at her papers. The music supervisor was still watching Sarah with those curious eyes. He seemed interested in what would happen next. "Where do you practice then?" the director asked. He was enjoying this now. He thought he had found something funny to entertain himself during this boring day of auditions. Sarah took a deep breath. She looked directly at the director. When she spoke, her voice was stronger than before. "I practice at the community center, sir. They have an old piano there. It only works 3 days a week. On Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I go there every single one of those days. I practice for 6 hours each time. When the community center is closed, I practice on a paper keyboard that I drew myself. I put it on my kitchen table and I move my fingers over it. I hear the music in my head." The director stopped smiling. He stared at Sarah with a different look now. The room was silent again. But this silence felt different from before. It was heavy. It was full of something that Sarah could not name. "A paper keyboard?" The music supervisor spoke for the first time. His voice was gentle. "You practice on paper?" "Yes, sir," Sarah said. "I know it sounds strange, but I cannot afford a real piano. They cost too much money. So I do what I can. I read music books from the library. I watch videos online when I can use the computer at the library, and I practice every single day, even if it is just on paper. The director cleared his throat. He sat up straighter in his chair. The smile was completely gone from his face now. He looked at Sarah differently. His eyes were not bored anymore. They were focused, sharp, interested. How long have you been doing this? He asked. His voice was serious now. All the mockery was gone. 12 years, sir, Sarah answered. I started when I was 8 years old. My grandmother took me to a concert once. I saw a woman playing the piano on stage. The music was so beautiful it made me cry. I told my grandmother I wanted to play like that. She said I could do anything I set my mind to. She passed away 3 years later, but I never forgot what she said. The casting director was listening now. She had put down her pen. Her eyes were soft as she looked at Sarah. Even the music supervisor had moved his chair closer to the table. He was leaning forward with his hands clasped together. Director Wilson was quiet for a long moment. He tapped his fingers on the table. Sarah could hear the sound clearly in the silent room. Tap, tap, tap. Each sound made her more nervous. Was he going to tell her to leave? Was he going to say she wasted his time? Show me the paper keyboard, he said suddenly. Sarah was surprised. Sir, the paper keyboard you made. I want to see it. Do you have it with you? Sarah nodded slowly. She opened her worn bag. Inside was a piece of cardboard. She had drawn piano keys on it with a black marker. The drawing was very detailed. Each key was the right size. Each black key was in the right place. The white keys had small marks where her fingers had pressed them thousands of times. The edges were bent from being carried around every day. She placed it carefully on the table in front of the director. Her hands were still shaking. The director picked it up and looked at it closely. He ran his fingers over the drawn keys. He studied every detail. The casting director stood up and came over to look at it too. The music supervisor got up from his chair and walked around the table to see. This is remarkable, the music supervisor said quietly. Look at the wear marks. She has used this so much the cardboard is thin in some places. The director did not say anything. He just kept looking at the paper keyboard. His face was impossible to read. Sarah felt like she might faint from the stress. She wanted to know what he was thinking. Was this good? Or was he going to laugh at her again? Finally, he put the cardboard down. He looked directly at Sarah. Can you really play? He asked. Or is this all just a story? The question hurt Sarah, but she understood why he asked it. In this business, people lied all the time. They made up stories to get attention. They pretended to be things they were not. The director had probably heard 1,000 fake stories. I can play, sir, Sarah said firmly. Give me a chance and I will prove it. Director Wilson stood up. He walked to the corner of the room where a beautiful grand piano sat covered with a white cloth. Sarah had not even noticed it when she came in. She had been too nervous to look around properly. The director pulled the cloth off. The piano was black and shiny. It looked expensive. It looked like the kind of piano Sarah had only seen in concerts and videos. This is a Steinway, the director said. It cost more than most people make in 5 years. It is one of the finest pianos in the world. If you can play, then play on this. Show me what 12 years of practice on paper can do. Sarah walked to the piano slowly. Her legs felt weak. This was it. This was the moment that would decide everything. She sat down on the bench. The seat was soft, much softer than the hard wooden chair she used at the community center. She placed her hands above the keys. They were real ivory keys. They looked perfect. They looked like they belonged in a museum. Her hands were shaking so badly, she had to stop for a moment. She closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. She thought about her grandmother. She thought about all those hours at the community center. She thought about all those nights practicing on her paper keyboard while her mother worked the night shift. She thought about every sacrifice, every struggle, every moment of doubt. She opened her eyes. She placed her fingers on the keys. And then she began to play. The first note rang out clear and pure. It filled the room like magic. Sarah played a piece by Chopin. It was called Nocturne in E-flat major. It was the piece she had been practicing for 3 months. She knew every single note. She had played it 1,000 times on her paper keyboard. She had heard it in her dreams. But this was different. This was real. The sound was beautiful. It was everything she had imagined and more. Her fingers moved across the keys like they had been doing this on a real piano their whole life. The muscle memory was perfect. Every movement she had practiced on paper translated perfectly to the real thing. The music flowed from her hands like water from a fountain, soft and gentle at first, then building with emotion. The notes danced in the air. They told a story of longing and hope, of sadness and joy, of everything Sarah had felt in her 20 years of life. She forgot about the director. She forgot about the audition. She forgot about being nervous. She was lost in the music. Her whole body moved with the rhythm. Her eyes closed again. She did not need to see the keys anymore. Her hands knew where to go. They had practiced this moment too many times to count. The piece reached its most beautiful part. The part that always made Sarah feel like she was flying. Her fingers moved faster. The notes became more complex. The emotion became stronger. She poured her whole heart into every single sound. And then, slowly, she brought the piece to its ending. The final notes were soft and sweet, like a whisper, like a goodbye kiss. The last note hung in the air for a long moment before fading away completely. Sarah kept her hands on the keys. She kept her eyes closed. She was afraid to open them. She was afraid to see the director's face. What if he did not like it? What if it was not good enough? What if she had failed? The silence in the room was complete. No one spoke. No one moved. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat. It was the only sound in the world. Finally, Sarah opened her eyes. She turned slowly on the piano bench. What she saw made her gasp. The casting director had tears running down her face. She was not even trying to hide them. She was smiling and crying at the same time. The music supervisor was standing with his mouth open. His eyes were wide with shock. He looked like he had just seen something impossible. And the director, Director James Wilson, was standing in the middle of the room. His hands were frozen in midair. He had been clapping but stopped halfway. His face was completely transformed. The bored, mocking expression was gone. In its place was pure amazement. His eyes were shining. His mouth was slightly open. He looked like a man who had just witnessed a miracle. Nobody spoke for what felt like forever. The silence was so thick Sarah could almost touch it. She did not know what to do. Should she say something? Should she leave? Should she apologize for wasting their time? Then the director started clapping again. But this time it was different. It was slow, deliberate. Each clap echoed in the room like thunder. The casting director joined in. Then the music supervisor. Soon all three of them were clapping. The sound filled the room and seemed to make the walls vibrate. That was, the director began. He stopped. He seemed to be searching for the right words. That was the most beautiful thing I have heard in 20 years of making films. Sarah felt tears coming to her own eyes now. She tried to blink them away, but they came anyway. They rolled down her cheeks, and she did not care anymore. Let them see her cry. Let them see how much this meant to her. The music supervisor came forward. He was shaking his head in disbelief. I have worked with professional pianists my entire career, concert pianists who trained at the best schools in the world. And I have never heard anyone play with that much emotion, that much soul. How is this possible? How can someone who practices on paper play like that? Sarah wiped her eyes. Music is not about the instrument, she said softly. It is about what you feel inside. The paper keyboard taught me something that a real piano might not have. It taught me to hear the music in my heart first, to feel every note before I played it. When you practice on paper, you cannot rely on the sound. You have to rely on your soul. The casting director walked over to Sarah. She put her hand gently on Sarah's shoulder. That was wisdom beyond your years, dear, she said. Her voice was warm and kind. And your playing showed that wisdom. Every note told a story. I could feel your struggle, your hope, your dreams. It was all there in the music. Director Wilson walked to the piano. He ran his hand across the top of it. I owe you an apology, he said. His voice was humble now, very different from before. I laughed at you. I judged you before giving you a chance. I thought the piano was what made a pianist. But you proved me wrong. You are not a pianist because you have a piano. You have a piano because you are a pianist. Do you understand what I mean? Sarah nodded. She understood perfectly. Being a musician was not about having the right tools or the expensive equipment. It was about having the passion, the dedication, the love for the art. Those things could not be bought. They had to come from within. The role is yours, the director said. If you want it. Sarah could not believe what she was hearing. Really? She whispered. You mean it? Absolutely, the director said. He was smiling now. A real smile. A kind smile. But I want to do more than just give you the role. I want to give you this piano. Sarah's eyes went wide. What? No, I cannot accept that. This piano is too expensive. Too valuable. Exactly, the director said. It is valuable. And it should be played by someone who truly values it. Someone who understands what music really means. You practiced for 12 years on paper. You never gave up. You never let the lack of a piano stop you from pursuing your dream. That kind of determination deserves to be rewarded. This piano needs a home where it will be loved and used every single day. I think your home is the perfect place. Sarah started crying again. But these were happy tears. The happiest tears she had ever cried. Thank you, she said. Her voice was breaking with emotion. Thank you so much. I promise I will take care of it. I will play it every day. I will make beautiful music on it. I know you will, the director said. He turned to the music supervisor. Make arrangements to have the piano delivered to her address. And make sure it is tuned before it goes. The music supervisor nodded. He pulled out his phone and started making notes. Consider it done, he said. This piano could not be going to a better home. The casting director came forward with a contract. We will start filming in 3 months, she explained. The role requires you to play several pieces throughout the film. The music supervisor will work with you to prepare. You will also need to take acting lessons. The studio will pay for everything. Your travel, your accommodation, your lessons, everything. Sarah took the contract with shaking hands. She tried to read it, but the words were blurry through her tears. She wiped her eyes and tried again. The contract was real. The role was real. The piano was real. This was not a dream. 1 week later, the piano arrived at Sarah's small apartment. Her mother cried when she saw it. Her neighbors came out to watch as the delivery men carefully carried it up the stairs. It barely fit through the door. It took up almost half of their tiny living room. But Sarah did not care. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. That night, Sarah sat at her new piano for hours. She played every piece she knew. She played the pieces she had practiced on paper. She played new pieces she had always wanted to try. The sound filled their small apartment and spilled out into the hallway. The neighbors did not complain. They stood outside their doors and listened. Some of them cried. Some of them smiled. All of them were moved by the beauty of the music. 3 months later, filming began. Sarah discovered she loved acting almost as much as she loved playing piano. The director was patient and kind. He helped her learn. He encouraged her when she made mistakes. He celebrated with her when she got things right. The film was released 1 year after that audition day. It became a huge success. People all over the world fell in love with Sarah's character. They fell in love with her music. Critics praised her performance. They said she brought something special to the role. Something authentic. Something real. But Sarah never forgot where she came from. She never forgot the paper keyboard. She kept it in a frame on her wall. When reporters asked about it during interviews, she told them the whole story. She told them about practicing at the community center, about the nights on paper, about the director who laughed at first but gave her a chance anyway. Her story inspired millions of people. Young musicians who could not afford instruments wrote to her. They told her she gave them hope. She told them to never give up, to practice however they could, to believe in their dreams even when it seemed impossible. Sarah used some of her earnings from the film to start a foundation. The foundation provided instruments to children who could not afford them. She remembered being that child. She remembered wanting so badly to have a real piano. Now she could give other children that chance. She could help their dreams come true, just like hers had come true. Years later, director Wilson visited Sarah at a concert she was giving. After the show, he came backstage. They hugged like old friends. You know, he said, that day you walked into the audition changed my life too. You taught me never to judge people by what they have or do not have. You taught me to look deeper, to see the heart and soul, to give people a chance. That lesson has made me a better director, a better person. Sarah smiled. And you taught me that dreams can come true if you work hard enough and never give up, she replied. We both learned something that day. That piano, the one the director gave her, still sits in Sarah's home today. She plays it every single day, just like she promised. And every time she sits down at those keys, she remembers the paper keyboard. She remembers the struggle. She remembers the moment when everything changed. When a director laughed at her and then, seconds later, could not believe what he was hearing. That moment when her whole life transformed because she dared to dream and never stopped believing.